Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. Today we have Dr. Michael Cotton talking about this book, Source Code Meditation. And it's this very exciting meditation that he's going to talk about today that I've tried. And it really does deliver on this hacking evolution through higher brain activation. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here.
So tell me a little bit about what source code meditation is and how you discovered it.
Okay. Well, we refer to source code meditation as a first of its kind brain first meditation technique, and that's an important distinction, that brain first element, because one of the challenges I found through the years with meditation is that for most people, it doesn't really, and I'm generalizing, but for most people, it doesn't deliver the kind of transformative benefits that these wisdom traditions and meditative and contemplative paths really set out to do. People find their stress goes down and, they have less anxiety and those types of things. But meditation was really meant to be the royal road to waking up, right? To radical liberation. And yet it doesn't seem like that's happening often. And so I have, and maybe we'll talk about this at some point, but I had a very dramatic shift in my own being many, many years ago that sent me off in a direction that has almost 3 decades later led to this creation through several iterations. But to get right to the point about what's unique about this, a challenge with conventional meditation is it's what I call a mind-on-mind based technique. So with meditation, we use the mind to try to change the mind. And this is like asking the fox to guard the hen house, right? It's like we come to meditation because we want to change our mind, to improve our mind, to get our mind clear, to get our mind awake. And yet the very thing that we want to change is the thing that we try to use to make that thing change.
Right.
So there's like paradox in there, right?
Yes.
So all meditation techniques are based on some type of learning to use your mind differently, learning to focus differently. They almost all involve some type of concentration or focus. Well, what I know now, and what I discovered was a missing link in meditation, is that it does not account for the brain side of the equation. You see, the brain and mind are not identical things. They correlate with each other, but the mind that we use in meditation that's our subjective interior thoughts, consciousness. The brain is the physical exterior thing that's in our head. That's a literal piece of something. It's an object.
Right.
And what we know now that none of these wisdom traditions knew, we know that to access that higher consciousness that really advanced meditation seeks, it requires that the brain change, that we light up, we get energy into higher components of the brain. So source code meditation actually leads with the brain part of the equation. The first thing we do is get energy into that higher part of the brain. And when that happens, meditation is very easy and very powerful because your brain is tuned to receive it.
Okay, so I want to actually loop back. There was a listener that asked, are we doing it wrong? And so what I'm hearing you say is that I'm just going to retrace what you said in a slightly different way, just so that listeners who haven't read the book can actually follow what we're talking about. So let's take a typical meditation that's very popular right now, which is mindfulness. And so we watch, we're mindful and we watch our breath go in and out. And so it's our brain looking at, where's my breathing? Where is it going? What's happening with my breath? Is it in my chest? Is it, oh, wait, do I have to do laundry today? Wait, where are my kids? Blah, blah, blah. So then the brain starts interjecting during my mindfulness practice in planning, organizing things that I quote unquote need for my survival according to the brain. So the brain, the physical thing, physical brain in my head is interrupting with mindfulness. And the mindfulness is not to be focusing on my brain. The mindfulness is really to be focusing on some higher mind, some deeper wisdom, exquisite being that I know that's somehow in there. But instead, what I'm getting is the brain. What time do I pick up? What we're going to eat for dinner today? Oh, yes, my breath. Where was that? Okay,
Right.
all right. So you're telling me that not that we've been doing it wrong the whole time, but a lot of mindfulness and other types of meditations that are so popular nowadays are focusing on something that is very hard for us to do because our brain gets in the way,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
tell us about the brain and how does it get in the way of the intention of some of these, spiritual practices?
So here's what happens, CJ, and again, you're right. It's not that any of these meditation techniques is wrong. It's that they're partial and have not fully recognized the significance of what has to happen in the brain to actually create the effects of meditation that we want to create.
Right.
And so just using the mind to look at the mind doesn't get us there in the way that it really could, because this is what happens. So first I want to make sure I've made this point that the mind is the subjective thoughts, consciousness thing. The brain is the physical object. Now those things correlate, but they're not the same thing.
Right. When people talk about the higher mind, they're not talking about higher mind does not equal brain. They're completely different things.
Mind correlates with higher
right. They're
brain.
Interrelated.
They're interrelated. Absolutely. Good word. So what's happened is, again, the idea that the brain is associated with these higher states of consciousness that we seek through meditation, that is a recent modern scientific discovery, right? There's no way, for instance, the Buddha could have known the correlation between metabolism in the prefrontal cortex and samadhi states of consciousness, right? Or nirvana, right? It's just impossible to know that at that time.
Right.
So modern science has now shown us that there's a corollary in the physical brain to these advanced states of consciousness. Okay? So knowing that, we understand what the brain is half of the whole equation here. And it's one that's completely left out. Mm-hmm. So here's where things get interesting. We humans have evolved over millions of years, and the way our brain evolved is through layering, through layers. Mm-hmm. So we have this old primitive part of our brain, I refer to generically as the lower brain, that has been in us since the beginning of our species, and it's still in us today, and it's still identical as it was in the Stone Age. The only difference is we have new layers emerged through evolution.
Right. So if this is the brain, there's like one level, then another level, and then a level on top of that. Someone explained it's almost like literally the shape if you're looking at a cross-sectional view. So there's a lower part of our brain, there's like a midpoint, and then there's a front. So you're talking about the lowest part right here, which is that the same as reptilian brain or what?
A reptilian brain is part of that complex, absolutely.
Okay.
And so that complex, that old mammalian reptilian brain, that complex has been in us way longer than this newest higher layer, right? It's been however long we are convinced the species has been on the planet, we've had a lower brain.
Right.
And what that lower brain does is it creates survival strategies. It's designed to keep us alive.
Right.
Now, we kind of accomplished that at some point, being able to stay alive.
Right. And
so evolution emerged these higher layers. The most recent one, the prefrontal cortex, and this whole new apparatus.
Which is on the top of it. What's it? And before you go into that, can you tell us what's in the middle part of the brain?
The brain?
Yeah. What is that part, and what's it responsible for?
Well, the emotion is a big part of it. It registers emotion, and then there's a cortical layer, right? A cortex. But there's even now a new the prefrontal cortex, and this apparatus it's the newest of any layer of our brain. So if this thing is new, but we have this old part of our brain that was designed to keep us from being eaten by tigers. That's what it's there for.
Right.
and it's still in us, and
Right.
it's still processing the world. Everything first goes through that lower brain, even now, before it starts to work up to the higher brain. So we're still human. It's been shown in science that the human brain and much of human behavior is all being driven by these old primitive survival strategies.
Ah, okay, got it. So, like, if I'm building a house, right, the foundation is this reptilian brain. And then on top of it is like, oh, we're going to do a remodel and incorporate your emotions. And then on top of that is like this prefrontal cortex that lies on top of that, which is like, yes, on top of your remodel, we actually added like a really cool
Yeah.
roof deck up there. If you could only see from up there,
Yes.
right? But then
Yes.
below you
Yes.
have
You
like,
only get all the way up those
yeah,
stairs.
you have to go from the basement all the way up to the penthouse. But if you
Yeah.
can get there, there's all these little pieces that you have to so normally what happens is a thought comes along, it hits this lower foundation. You're in the basement, right? And so instead of getting from the basement, how do you actually get to the penthouse view?
Yeah. Yeah. I love your analogies, by the way. So that thought hits your brain, or anything hits your
Yeah.
brain. What the lower brain does is say, how should I hide from this? How should I be scared of this? How is this a threat for me? And it wants to protect you from the world. That's what it's designed to do.
Yes.
So the first connection I want to make is that research has shown us that that part of the brain is still dominant in humanity. In
Right.
fact, that's what produces stress and anxiety. That's lower brain physiology. That's what produces stress and anxiety. So
Mm.
the first connection I want to make is that we have a lower brain that wants things to stay the same. Sameness equals safety to the lower brain. That's how we survived in a predator-rich world. You go to the same watering hole, you go to the same cave, you take the same path, because if it's safe, you don't deviate from it, even if you think it might be a better path, because you could get eaten. So you
Right.
keep doing, you cut these ruts in your world, and your brain starts to hardwire that in.
Right.
So it wants, even in the modern world, that's why people have such a hard time making change, changing their finances, changing their relationships, changing their mind, because part of them is biologically wired to stay the same, because
Right.
whatever they've been doing led to their survival.
Well, if you think about the house analogy, it's the foundation. It's the foundation in which, like, everything feels safe and secure, and I'll just keep on doing it the same way. I'll keep on driving to pick up the kids using the same route because I
That's right.
know over and over again there's no traffic, there are fewer lights, and I'm
Yep.
assuming that all these things are true. So I'm just driving down the same road, driving down the same road, driving down the same road.
Yes.
And then pretty soon this foundation becomes like the template which everything rests off of. And so that's basically, and I want homeostasis, which is you're talking about, which is like, I know this is safe. I can get to work, school, wherever on time. So I will
Yep.
just keep on driving down the same road. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the thing that we're fighting against.
That's beautiful. Absolutely. And so now what we do is we say, hey, I want to change my mind. I want to change my life. I want to learn meditation. So the first thing to understand is the lower brain in humanity is on lockdown. It's
Right.
trying to protect us,
Yeah.
and we don't even know it. Everything that you just talked about is unconscious. It's like
Right.
that's just what we do. So now we sit down, and what's meditation designed to do? Radically change our mind and radically change our life. What's the lower brain not want to do? Change.
Right. I don't like change. I don't want change because it
Right.
just feels safe.
We sit down and use this mind on mind technique, and the lower brain is saying, we're not changing, we're not changing, we're not changing.
Yeah.
And so we're putting that meditation into a physiology that doesn't want to change. Okay? So what's the solution? The solution is that this is what we know from science. Those advanced states that we seek, whether we call them enlightenment or samadhi or nirvana or satori or just higher consciousness, those enlightenment states that we seek, they actually, we know from research, correlate with energy and metabolism in these higher, newest, evolved structures of the brain. The part of the brain that we're not getting energy in because the lower brain hasn't loosened its grip enough. So through with our technique is we have a way to literally change the state of the brain. If we get energy out of the lower brain into the higher brain, now the brain is in a thrive state, not a survive state. Now it wants to change. Now we introduce meditation. We use our mind-based technique once our brain is ready for it, and that changes everything.
Okay, so we got a question from one of the listeners saying,
Yeah.
well, if everything's working, I mean, I heard this lower brain come in, right? If everything's working, I'm getting things done, then why do I need to shift to this higher brain?
Well, because I'll just say, you ain't seen nothing yet.
If you think this is good, go up
Right.
to the penthouse, man. You're going to see so much more and you'll be thrilled. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah, okay.
You bet. And none of this, like the lower brain doesn't go away when we make the shift to the lower brain. It just doesn't dominate our life. Below the conscious threshold, our primary behaviors are not driven through survival. And so the higher part of the brain is the part of the brain where we also have purpose, meaning in life, compassion, gratitude, and these enlightenment states that we talked about. So here's an interesting way to look at this. We talk about the lower part of the brain being this survival machine. The famous National Institutes of Mental Health researcher, Dr. Paul MacLean, who was actually one of the first ones to articulate these layers of brain development, he referred to this prefrontal cortex area as the fourth evolutionary system and called it the angel lobes. This is his scientific term, the angel lobes, because it provides purpose and meaning and spiritual connection. And so we don't have to make anyone's life wrong or what we're doing wrong to say there's untapped potential in humanity that is waiting to awaken. And when that happens, we can start to live in a new way, even if how we're living is good, right? Is that if we look at ourselves as these evolutionary beings, which I do, right? We're never complete, right? I'm not done. I'm still evolving. I'm still growing. I'm still transforming, and that doesn't have to ever end.
Okay, so let me actually just circle back to the listener's question. What I heard was, why would I change anything? Why do I need to have this energy move from my lower brain to my higher brain? Why, Michael? And what I heard you say is, and like you're getting things done, you will still get things done. It's not that you will not get, you'll be like staring at a flower and being like, I won't pick up my kids. I won't go to work. I'm just staring at a flower and seeing puppy dogs and unicorns. No, you will actually be still doing the things that you've been doing, but feel more purpose, meaning, and joy while you're doing those same things. And there'll be some greater capacity to see what you're doing in a broader field. You'll have like I said, a penthouse view instead of being in the basement. Oh, I'm picking up the kids. I'm going to work. You'll kind of be like, I'm picking up the kids. I love my children. You'll have a very different kind of penthouse view, still doing the same things that you need to get done, but from kind of an elevated point of view. So that's what I think I heard you say.
I think, I've got to tell you, CJ, you have a real gift for bringing these concepts and you really do. It's really wonderful. The analogies you form around that are really powerful. So I thank you for that. No, it's good stuff. So you're absolutely right on target with this. And I would even insist that even those day-to-day things, you don't only continue to get them done, you get them done with much greater efficiency. We even, the predecessor of this source code meditation was called higher brain living. It was a technique that this emerged out of. And we have academic level research on that. When people liberate this energy to their brain and wake up this part of their brain through our programs, that they not only exhibit more compassion and meaning and purpose and those kind of things, but they've actually been able to demonstrate that they attain their goals at a more rapid rate, They master all elements of their life at a much rapid rate. So it's kind of just improving the overall function of the whole system and giving us that, as you say, penthouse view, which I love. You know, it's like we could live in the basement without the lights and windows forever and survive, but that penthouse view opens up, you know, a whole new opportunity.
So I want to circle back to one of the things that you said, because two things. One is that you said we have this great potentiality, right? And so the reason I'm actually mapping, and I want to make sure I understand this correctly,
Yeah.
you said that we're going to have more energy at our disposal. So I'm assuming it's because we have more energy at our disposal, because we're tapping to this unutilized portion of our brain, right? So if we look at the house, we haven't even gotten to the penthouse, and when we get up to the penthouse, we can see things more clearly, which is part of why we're being more efficient. And there's something about the energy. So tell me a little bit about what the energy has to do with it. And is that right, that the reason why you can be more efficient is because you have more energy and you're untapping some more potentialities of your brain that you didn't know? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you have, yes, you have more energy, and through untapping that new potentiality, that brain, that is our future. That's where evolution is trying to take us, right? That's where we go from surviving into thriving. So that brain is designed for us to thrive, designed for us to discover our purpose, designed for us to live with meaning. That's what that part of the brain is there for. But we have the anatomy, the architecture, but we haven't made it fully functional. It's not become fully energized.
Right.
And so what you were just pointing at, CJ, is that there's just like there's a latent potential in the higher brain, there's latent energy in the human body. And this energy has been known, I know you know about this, that by every one of the world's ancient healing arts and wisdom traditions. It's been called prana, chi, ki, by any name, running along the spinal system.
Right.
This subtle energy, right, is harbored in the body.
Right.
And all of these different techniques have different ways to mobilize that energy. Well, what we've done over years is create a protocol that liberates that energy very rapidly, very consistently, very reproducibly, that when that energy starts to flow through these pathways in the body, in our system, it starts to nudge awake that untapped, dormant, higher brain potential.
Okay, so for folks that are not familiar with it, in your book you talk about the something orbit it's in Taoism. What is it called again?
The Genesis.
Okay, got it. So, and tell me again. So,
I have to spell it. I'm kidding.
Salutogenesis, Slutogenesis. Okay, is that right? All right. So, where does the energy start from your model? Where does the energy start and end? So, is it? I have a model myself, so I don't want to get it confused with your model. So, where does your model start?
So there's a couple of components to this. All right. One of them is that we talk about the pathways in the body.
Okay, I'll show. So there's a background here. So there's I don't know what it's there. So there, but where does it start? Does it start in your sacral area?
Well, it can start in multiple locations. Okay. That's the thing. And so so if we understand those pathways running through the body, and we think of them as more like a subtle anatomy than these.
Right, you can't touch it. It's an energetic, psychic body that you have within inside of yourself.
Here's the fascinating thing, because I 100% agree with that, and that's what I lead with. But because of the consistency that these were taught and understood for forever, right, for thousands of years, Western science has now had to take a look at these pathways.
Yes.
And what they have found, they've developed their own model about this. Dr. James Oshman, for instance, the biophysicist, has done a lot of research on this at the academic level. And what they found is that these pathways that run along the spinal system are very, very rich in a connective tissue. I'm going to geek out here, but I'll be quick. It's called microfilaments and microtubules.
Mm-hmm.
And those structures are crystalline in nature, and they're what's called piezoelectric.
Piezoelectric. Okay.
And what that means is that when they're contacted, compressed, stretched, touched in certain ways, they release energy.
Ah.
Scientific fact. Okay, and so what we have now is a Western science model that says there are pathways running along the body, along the spinal system, that can be contacted in ways, because they're energy exquisite, they will release energy that will travel through the connective tissue. Now, as you do, there's an element of this that's even more subtle than this, but even using that model.
I finally get something when you were talking about in your book, the source code meditation. You talk about this. What is it called? This electrical thing again? What's it called?
Piezoelectric, yeah.
Physioelectric?
Piezoelectric.
Piezoelectric. Okay, so what you're saying is just like the brain is a component of the mind, we have a physiological component that runs along our spine, and that along our spine are these little electric connectors that run along, and that if we touch certain parts of our spine, it kind of activates. It's like the on switch, ding, and then the kind of all of a sudden the thing gets animated.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what we've done, CJ, is knowing this.
Yes.
Knowing there's untapped potential in the brain, we developed a protocol. See, also I found historically that there were people tapping into this energy that were having the kind of changes that I knew had to correlate with waking up higher potential in the brain. They didn't quite know that. They couldn't have really known that.
Right. They didn't describe it in that particular way.
Exactly. But we know that now. And so what we've developed over years is a protocol that accesses points along these pathways in a way that consistently liberates that energy to the brain.
Okay. So there are 2 points. Tell me a little bit about why those 2 points, because there's lots of points along this continuum. Why these 2 points, and what do these 2 points do?
Well, and you're absolutely right. They're not the only points that we can actually use to get energy to the brain, but they are the most powerful, consistent, easy to access.
Okay.
If we learn how to use those two, it's all we really need to make very dramatic change.
Okay.
And they have, I can go into a lot of detail even with the traditions on, the like that general area at the bottom it's a lower chakra in yoga, right?
Yes, it's like the first chakra. It's called the sacral chakra. It's the base in Kundalini yoga. It's where in theory, the Kundalini or the serpent that needs to be awakened sits. So is that the number? That's like one of the 2 spots that you're activating.
And we have a very unique and specific way to access that.
Right.
As well as what we call the upper merging vortex. We call them subtle energy vortexes. And so that upper subtle energy vortex has also, for instance, there's 2,000-year-old Taoist text that refer to this point as the jade pillow. And talk about making 3-fingered contacts that create changes in breathing patterns. This in Vedantic philosophy. Yeah. This contact point is known as the mouth of God. So that ought to tell you something about the significance, right?
Right. Yeah. So these are the 2 points that you chose to activate, even though there are other points that, because I've seen your videos where you're touching someone's knee and you're touching, like you're going like a magician, and then the person's like, but these are the 2 points that if you want to turn on the elevator to the penthouse, these are the 2. You've got to have. You got to figure out, like when you go to the hotels and then you're like, if you want to get into those special rooms, you have to insert the key, then you can go to the penthouse. But otherwise, okay, so that's equivalent.
I'm going to steal some of your analogies, CJ.
Okay, I'm putting a little T next to all of it, trademark. Okay, no, I'm just joking. Okay, so let us talk about the points, and so I'm going to show my butt online on air. want to make sure we're getting the point so that people know, and you actually have a video. Tell us where the video is. All right, so here's my bum, and then and the bottom is I'm actually help me instruct me on how to get there. So I know that one of them is in my sacral area, and please excuse me, everyone, but you can go on Fire It Up with CJ on YouTube and see the point. So I'm feeling down on my bum in between my butt crack along my spine, and I feel like, tell me where it is. Where's the spot?
Yeah. So if you take your fingers, the best way to do it is put it kind of in this configuration. If you can see me like this.
Wait, hold on. Let me actually go back to. I'm trying to get it so people can see it, and then I can see you.
And the book lays out diagrams, and we also have videos on the website that actually show me guiding.
Yeah,
people.
So I'm going to show Pete the picture. Yeah. Can you see that on the camera? Okay. So help me find the spot myself. So
if you put your hand like this, we're going to touch right here, and then you reach behind you.
Your hand like in it, and it's like almost like grabbing your four fingers together with your thumb.
But you're not closing them. You're going to use the points of the fingers, and you're going to touch that sacral area.
Okay, like a cup like this.
Yeah, and come up kind of high on it, like higher than you think you should.
Okay.
And then just kind of start gliding it down, and you'll find a spot in there that feels like it kind of starts to fall into quicksand, or it changes energetically, where it's like the tissue kind of wants to pull your hand in, or it gets softer in that area.
Okay.
All of those things are way.
So I can actually feel my spine. It's all bony. And then all of a sudden I get to a point that is kind of like, it's not bony, but it's actually like almost going into my anus. Sorry people. Okay. Yeah. But it's like in that little spot right there where there's nothing.
There's actually 2 points. That's the lower one, and there's an upper one that's accessible too, but that's yes, you're there.
Okay. So that point, apologies people online, but it's like between your anus and the lowest part of your spine, and it feels
and there's one higher than that too,
Okay, and when I touch the one higher than that, I literally find like my tailbone. Mm-hmm. Is that the spot that I'm going to be pressing?
But you'll find a spot in there that feels different than the other spots. If you run your hand through there kind of quickly, you'll find it energetically changes, and it often will feel like it kind of pulls you into it.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So you're saying if I were to touch the bones, there's one of those bony spots will feel like something is pulling up. It's not that little hollow spot. It's not the bony spot, but there's this kind of, I feel it. It's like it's kind of like you can feel energy in that spot.
Yep.
Okay. So that's where you want to press. And when I'm pressing, I'm taking my fingers like this, and then
you kind of locate what you're doing. Then is just getting where you only have 1 or 2 fingers that you're going to touch with. Then like this, right? And once you've located it,
wait, can you show me your fingers again? Like what you're taking?
Like just dropping those other 2 out of there.
Okay, so it's only like 2 fingers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
you want to be as precise as you can into that spot.
Okay. So then I'm turning on the on switch. Okay, so I'm turning on the on switch, and so directionally when I'm pressing into this spot, it's going in. There's a directionality. Tell me about the directionality part of it.
And so the audience is clear. You do this laying face down with a pillow under your chest.
Right.
So it's a lot easier to do than sitting or standing. And so you reach behind you. The directionality then is we're going in and out at a 45-degree angle. So you come in, you make the contact, and you come out. And you do this at exactly the time you breathe into that spot, right? It takes a week of practice probably to really kind of get good at it. And again, we have a video on the website. When people have the book, it provides a link to the video so that they can watch me literally guide someone through this that's laying down doing it, where I can teach it on video.
Okay, got it. So when I'm pressing in that little spot, what's the physiological thing that I'm activating, or energetic thing?
Right. So that depends on which model we want to use. If we want to use the Western science model, what we're doing is making a contact into that piezoelectric dense tissue.
Right.
That those microfilaments and microtubules are very dense and rich in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And for reasons that are beyond the scope of what we can explain, that 45 degrees, when it comes in and comes out, it's the point of when it's not going in or not going out. It's midway between those points that seems to stimulate that piezoelectric effect or create that movement of energy that starts to flow through the body.
Okay.
And so there's a protocol for doing this, like doing it 3 times, noticing the breath start to change as you do it. There's a protocol, and then going to the up one that's led through the book and then also led through the video.
So for folks that are familiar, so it's called in the book there's a SCM, the source code meditation base, in which it shows the pointing and the energy going. When you talk about this way, so I'm pressing in with the 2 fingers. Yep. And I'm imagining the energy going this way?
Well, that's your contact point. The energy will go up the spine inside of the body. The arrows just represent the points of enter and exit.
Okay, but so I'm pressing once like this.
Yep.
And then what's this little arrow supposed to mean?
That's your follow through. That's how you come off of it. So you go in.
I see. So you go, I'm touching in, and then I'm scooping out. That's, I saw that in the video.
You had a neat, right?
I didn't get it. So I'm kind of touching and then scooping in and out. I get it now. Okay, so that's basically how to activate this one area, which is rich physiologically in that charge. And so I'm activating that spot, and then you're also activating, in your book you talk about this other spot. And so you were telling me earlier, if I actually touch along the base of my skull, there's going to be a place that's kind of a soft spot. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go in and then out like this, right? Yep. So like a little like this to activate that spot. Yep. That spot. Okay, so when why 2 spots? Why the?
Because there are a number. We've been working on these protocols for close to 15 years now, and there are a number of spots that we can sequence. What we're actually doing is introducing information in a very specific code into the body that creates this liberation of energy. And so it's not just that we're making the lower contact. We're doing it in a certain way. We're making it. We're observing a cycle of breath. We're making it again. Then again, there's meaning, but none of that is arbitrary. Then we go to the upper. So there's several steps that all lead to this energy being liberated. When it introduces this code through this protocol, the energy starts to flow to the higher brain. We can measure this. We have a source code meditation world headquarters in Chicago, Illinois, a director of research. We actually measure the brain changes, correlate them with quality of life changes in people. It's amazing what we're seeing right now. So this is like real stuff. This isn't just kind of like new age.
Right, and just so when you're talking about the research that you're doing. So you're looking at, and I assume you have like nodes that people put on their brain so they can look at their alpha, beta, theta stage of their brain. And measuring those. So you're saying you actually have research that shows that it's not like you arbitrarily like, let's just pick 1 and 2, 5. You actually, these are the 2 spots that when you touch actually activate different parts of a person's brain. So you are literally circumventing the lower parts of your reptilian brain and going to the penthouse.
Yeah, and here's the thing. That's really awesome. And the thing I want people to understand is that this higher brain capacity is there. Nature has laid it down, or God, whatever your belief is, we have higher anatomy in our brain that we're not using.
Right.
We also have energy in our body that flows through certain pathways that we know this, that we're not using. Wow. And I'm convinced those 2 things were always meant to go together. But we have not yet completed that circuit. The lower brain, here's what's happened. This primitive brain is trying to adapt to a world it's not suited for. It's not made to adapt to the complexity of the modern world.
Right.
And all complexity is just registered as a million little tigers. And so it's always trying to keep us safe. And it does that by robbing energy flows that could go to these higher structures. So we've never got this fully online.
Mm.
This is just simply, and the reason it's so powerful, it sounds so simple, right? Like you watch these videos and you see me making these contacts, you go, how could this be happening in someone's body? But the point is that it's already in there. We're just kind of nudging it awake. And when that happens, it comes online, right? And we even feel, you will feel once you learn to make these contacts, you'll feel it kind of taken over on its own. Like the breath will start to flow in this rhythmical pattern. You'll feel energy start to move through the body. It'll start to feel like your breath is expanding in waves. You have this experience like, I'm not even the one taking this breath. Something is breathing me is what it feels like. Like every cell is breathing in my body. And what I'm insisting is that's already in there. We're not like making it happen, right? We're just opening the door. We're unthinking the hose, and the energy can then flow through.
Yeah. You've always had the key to go to the penthouse. You just needed to know how to get there. So this meditation is a way for us to access our higher brain so that we can feel things like compassion, love, meaning, purpose. And so really by virtue, when you've actually been having, so let's talk about what the results that you've actually been measuring when you've had people do the source code meditation. And there's, along with the meditation itself and the access to the videos, you have these 9 summits of transformation, which I don't want to go into the whole time, but
we could talk for hours. CJ.
Yeah. So I'll just say that there's, in addition to that, and there's a whole chapter on basically every 2 weeks going through this meditation and unlocking different potentialities within yourself, which, from my, because I read a lot of spiritual books, these basically map to enlightenment. I mean, basically someone's increasing of consciousness, awakening, enlightenment, whatever you want to call. And these meditations that, when coupled with your source code meditation, allows you to actually get the benefits of these meditations. So do you imagine someone going through an 18-week cycle and then cycling back?
Okay. Yeah, so you got very, very apt point in there. So the source code meditation, it wakes the brain up and wakes the mind up. Like it's profound. We have these awakening states, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not the end game. For me, just like you said, you don't want to be awake and sit there and look, and look at a flower for years, right? So the question is, what do you do when you wake up? What do you do with that? And the 9 summits of transformation, they actually encompass this. This is based on integral meta theory, a very sophisticated way of looking at all of the ways we can grow in every vector of our life. And what the 9 summits of transformation do is take that awake brain and awake mind, and they show it the path to be able to live your life, to bring that into the life process in the way that creates your best relationships, your best fiscal health, your best environment. And so you don't just wake up, you also grow up.
Right. Yeah, because what I'm hearing you say is that, we have these areas that we'd like to grow in our lives, and sometimes we'll hit places of stuckness. So this is actually activating the penthouse view, so we can take the penthouse view along with some very well-guided questions that you have in your book that will help you go, aha, so you have an increased consciousness, awareness. So that mind meets typical problems. When you're in the basement, you look at the problems like, when you're in the penthouse, maybe you look and go, aha, you have a more aha, insightful. And so from that higher mind, you're able to actually answer questions from a different level.
I just thought of my own analogy, taking a message, a teaching from you there, CJ, is that, so I love so we're, the lower brain, we're living in the basement.
Right.
We have this penthouse view, and there's this elevator, like the runs up these pathways, right?
Yep.
But the elevator isn't plugged in.
Right.
So you plug it in and then push the buttons. That's what the protocol does,
Right.
and it runs up.
Yes.
So then we get the elevator up into the penthouse, and now we can see, we have the view of 50,000 feet. We can see all of this amazing potential. But now we want to get out of the penthouse and bring that into these areas of our life out there in the world.
Yes.
And that's what the 9 summits do, is
integration.
Into the life process.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about what you've observed. You've had clients and students and teachers as part of your whole process. I know that you have classes in Chicago. You have yoga studios that teach this stuff. What are you finding is the progression? How long does it take? Like, can I be enlightened in 18 weeks? Like, what are you experiencing? What's a likely trajectory?
You don't want much, do you, CJ?
No. I mean, in 18 weeks, I think that's enough.
I'm just teasing. So we actually have several different ways to come into this, right? Mm-hmm. And so what you said in yoga studios, we have trained, certified facilitators that have gone through the Higher Brain Living Protocol that learn how to do what I self-teach in the book. Mm-hmm. There are training models where people learn how to do this for or on someone else very, very powerfully and effectively. So we have in our institute in Chicago, as well as yoga studios in Chicago, soon to bring it across the world, where people can go in and get the hands-on facilitated part of it, as well as do it on their own. Right. So that's one way to pursue that. But we also have online programs, 2 different ones of them, that are almost like you could say, take these ideas in the book and they unpack them through these beautifully illustrated ways that have, one of our programs has like 50 different video teachings that goes through all the 9 summits.
Wow. Okay, good.
PDFs, graphics, audios, and different, and a Facebook group, a live coaching call every week with me around this stuff. And then we have a more simplified one that's a 6 weeks to learn real depth around the source code meditation to take with you forever.
Right.
I host 2-day retreats across the country, okay, from coast to coast, even some internationally. I host 7-day retreats internationally. So most of that is on our sourcecodemeditation.com website, these various paths to be able to, as well as the book, right? The book is a great entry into this.
Right. So there's lots of different paths. There's either go to Chicago, take a class. It sounds like you're spreading nationwide with some of your trainers going out, and then also an online class, and then also reading the book. And as we talked about, reading the book, looking at the video that you can get access to the book. I can say for myself, I started doing this meditation only 2 or 3 days ago, so I don't know exactly what I'm doing, and sometimes I feel like I'm just faking it. I'm like, I saw what that, like I'm faking it until I make it. I see the woman in the video. I'm like, I guess this is what's supposed to happen. and then I'm like, hey, maybe it's happening automatically. No, maybe I'm imagining it. Who cares? I'm doing something.
That's common about 2 or 3 days in.
What?
That's common about 2 or 3 days.
Okay, so I'm assuming that if I keep on going over a 2-week period, something will, finally my body will be like, are you trying to do something over here? I see that you're trying to plug in the cord. Okay, so something will happen, and then there was one time I did it, and I think I told you before I did it, and my meditation, I literally was seeing flashing lights when I was doing my normal meditation, which is a Kundalini-based meditation. It was like my brain was like just going berserk, and then also. Is that part of, I don't know. And then the other thing is I went downward because my meditation is focusing on this channel. And when I went downward, I felt this kind of undulating, like I was almost in an ocean. And it was just like, oh my God, where'd that come from? So there was this additive piece to my meditation. So I think
you'll feel that more and more pronounced.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is something I can do with my regular meditation. This is not incongruent. This is almost like preparatory work to
Yeah.
help accentuate whatever spiritual path or meditation that I'm on. I could be a Buddhist doing emptiness practice, or I'm doing non-dual tantric practice. These are parts of it. Is that right?
That's a really good way to say that. I mean, the 9 summits of transformation are in and of themselves this kind of complete path,
Right.
but they're not exclusive or competitive with any path. And
Right.
in fact, what we're really positioning this for is to become the hub. It's like anything that you're going to do is going to work multiple times better when you get energy into the part of the brain that actually is designed to thrive. That's why so many of the yoga studios we have in Chicago, and soon to go into other parts of the country, some really key, sophisticated yogis that do this program. And they say when they do this and then they go to the mat and do their yoga asana practice, their posture practice, they say it just explodes in a good way because their brain is tuned. And then when that comes in, it's just exponential benefit.
Excellent. All right. So I need to wrap it up, but we have Dr. Michael Cotton. SourceCodeMeditation.com is your website. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you. That was great.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. I would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.